All right. So, welcome to this is the third episode of Transformations, recording live. And to give you a bit of a brief background of why Transformations has come about, I want to just paint you a bit of a picture of where I was about 5 years ago. So, if you'd met me about 6 years ago, you would have seen a very different version of myself. You would have seen me as a single mum working a part-time job, really desperately unhappy in my life, not living a healthy lifestyle. And it got to that point where I needed to have a transformation. So that was around the time that I did get my first coach, learned about NLP, completely transformed my life. And now it's become my great passion and purpose to help people like you find your own transformation. And I'm lucky enough to have a business which allows me to do that. So I'm coaching, I'm teaching people NLP and hypnosis, and I get to hear these fascinating stories from really amazing people day in and day out on how they're transforming their lives and the people that they want to help as well. And so we're sharing these stories with you in the hope that if you're someone who's needing some transformation, that you might hear something here that inspires you to go out and seek that change too. And so this episode, I'm really excited to have join me tonight is Ali Nitschke of Made for More. And Ali is a powerhouse, hugely impressive woman, mum, business owner, and she's all about leadership and helping people move from being acceptable to exceptional and using courageous conversations. And Ali's got some fascinating stories to tell us, and very inspirational stories to tell us about her own transformation and also what she does with her clients. So without further ado, I'd like to have a warm welcome to Ali Nitschke from Made for More. Ali, thanks so much for being here this evening.
Oh, thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I'm pretty excited to talk about all things transformation. It's pretty cool stuff once you get into it.
Yeah, it is. It's just mind-blowing, and I just love the stories that I hear from people, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us, Ali. So to start off, I would love it if you could tell us a bit about your business, who you help, and how you come about starting it.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So I have a business called Made for More, which Tony mentioned, and I'm a leadership and performance coach. So I work with leaders and organisations around Adelaide, and also now that COVID's come into place, also nationally, which is really nice. And I work with them to level up their leadership, and a lot of that has to do with mindset. And then I also teach people the art of courageous conversations, because what I was hearing for years and years and years, working as a leader and working with leaders, is that people really struggle to have what they would define as the difficult conversations or dealing with difficult people. So I am actually quite okay with confrontation. I am lucky enough to be really comfortable being uncomfortable, having tough conversations. This wasn't something that I really ever noticed came up in my own leadership journey. I was really okay with performance management. But when I started working with leaders as my clients, it was the number one question that I got asked all the time is, how do I have those tricky conversations? How do I let this person know that their performance is really rubbish? And then I started, teaching people the art of courageous conversations, because I think there's a lot of turmoil that happens in the workplace when we are not having those conversations that we should be having.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Ali. And I love that this is your niche, that this is how you help people, because it is such a big thing. And, and I remember back when I was employed and working in finance, I know if I used to witness, my manager really struggle with having to have some difficult conversations in the office. And, there was times when, I would come in and help sort of coach him. And this was before I was really coaching, to get around that, because so many people do struggle in that space. And I guess, what I love really as well about communication is that if we look at NLP, it's neuro-linguistic programming, it's all about language, right? Linguistics and communication. So I think it's such a powerful part of our lives and our relationships. So what's interesting, Ali, is I know that you haven't originally set out to be to learn NLP or hypnosis, but there are things that you have started picking up along the way. So can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to learn some NLP and hypnosis?
Oh, this is a really good question, and actually, like, quite unrelated how I ended up here. But I guess two things. So the NLP, so the neuro linguistic programming, I'd heard a little bit about it, sort of around the Tony Robbins genre, like people that were right into Tony Robbins, and didn't really think much about it, and had sort of parked that. So I heard about NLP maybe 5 years ago and just didn't really think there was much to it. And then probably about, when was it? July, August last year, one of our friends, Lucy, she actually was one of your students to NLP and hypnosis. And after the hypnosis workshop, she was looking for some guinea pigs, and she was like, "Oh, I can do hypnosis for weight loss or performance or whatever." And I'd had 4 kids, and I also really liked Nutella, and I'd packed on quite a few kilos that I just couldn't shift, and I knew that my mind wasn't right. I kept sabotaging myself, and I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll be your guinea pig. Let's see what you've got." And I lost 15 kilos within 43 days or something like that. So
Wow.
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
managed to keep it off. So that's pretty good. Ready for the next shred. But I think that's when I sort of really realized the power of hypnosis, but also how much your mind has to do with everything else that's going on in your life. So I know that you talk a lot around the iceberg, or, like what your conscious mind versus your subconscious mind. And I just had a lot of subconscious stuff that was steering me towards Nutella that wasn't really helping me. And hypnosis really got to, I guess, went deep into that, and got me out of my own head around what was okay and what was not okay. And then after that experience, I thought, this is really powerful stuff. I can use this with my clients around high performance. And now I use hypnosis for both my weight loss clients and also performance. But what I found when I did the training with you, the hypnosis training with you, was how much I needed and loved the relaxation part of it as well. So as I mentioned, I've got 4 kids. One of them was quite young back then, not quite one, and definitely not sleeping through the night. And I just really struggled to get a full night's sleep. So even if he slept, I'd wake up and it was, I was up for a couple of hours. And then I think it was day 2, I went home from the hypnosis training and I had the best night's sleep I've had in 7 years. I've been a mum for 7 years. In 7 years, I was crashed out so hard. And I can't remember when we did that. It was earlier in the year, but I'm still sleeping just so well. Whatever it was with the hypnosis, I just really needed it to get into that deep state of relaxation. So yeah, it's very, very powerful stuff and totally underestimated.
Yeah, that's so good to hear, Ali. And I think, that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, is that hypnosis really is about getting into a very deep state of relaxation. And of course, yeah, the 3-day hypnosis training you were talking about, I think you attended the one in January.
Oh, wow. Lots
One
happened
of
since then.
the Yeah, one of the particular techniques that we do focus on there is stress reduction, and you can literally measure how much more relaxed people become in like 15 minutes. People can be stressed at a level of 8 or 9 out of 10, and then 15 minutes later they're down at like 3 or 4 lower, of relaxation. And it is really important, and I think it ties in with so many things. I mean, like you said, sleeping is so important to get relaxed, to get a good night's sleep. But it also obviously, well, not necessarily obviously to a lot of people, but a lot of weight loss issues can be around having too much stress, because when we're stressed, we have all the cortisol, and that programs our body to hold on to the fat, which makes it a lot harder. So it's amazing just how much difference just being able to get deeply relaxed makes to your whole physiology.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I didn't realize how tired I was. Like, I knew that I was tired and a little bit sleep deprived, but I didn't realize how much I was awake during the night until I wasn't. And then I was like, oh, this is what it's like to wake up with a beautiful relaxed mind, and the next day I was all pistons were firing. So yeah, it's made a huge difference in my, I guess, day-to-day performance, but also I'm not as grumpy and all the rest of it. Much better mother now that I can sleep. So yeah, stress was definitely a big one that I didn't actually know I had and didn't know I needed until I've got it, and now it's an awesome technique that I can use to put myself into a deep state of relaxation when I need to.
Yeah, well, and that's a beautiful point as well, being able to put yourself into relaxation, because that's the thing, isn't it? All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So it's not only just about learning about how to help put other people in trance and give them suggestions, but it's actually a lot more about learning how to put yourself in trance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've
Yeah.
got quite a busy mind, like busy. Don't want to say busy because that's not. I've got quite a. No, it is busy. I've got a busy mind, and I find that I actually do need to do that forced switch off. I think we've talked about meditation before. And meditation, I want to do all the acts with meditation, but for me, hypnosis is something quite different. So yeah, being able to have those techniques and those tools available has been pretty miraculous.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Ali, tell me, were there any sort of fears or doubts or limitations that you needed to overcome to go and learn hypnosis?
Um, I mean, probably you always wonder. There's a little bit of skepticism. Like probably before I saw Lucy and she did the weight loss hypnosis on me, I was a bit skeptical about what it all was about. But I almost instantly felt different, and then started to notice the weight falling off, and then obviously that made me feel different. So it was a bit of a snowball effect. And then for me to do it was probably one of those things where I had a bit of self-doubt around whether I would be able to actually get people into that deep state of relaxation, and would it be okay, and what if they went too deep and fell asleep and I didn't know what to do. But that was fine in the end. So not so much around that. And I think having, you were there, so you were able to talk us through what to do when anything happened, or how to actually get someone into a deep state of relaxation and get them out of a deep state of relaxation. So any doubts that I did have, or limiting beliefs around that, would definitely dissipated throughout 3 days. So that was really good.
Yeah, and that's really good. And I think, a lot of the feedback that I get from people is that, they worry about all these kinds of things. Like some people think, oh, do I have to be a doctor or a psychologist to do hypnosis? Or, can I be hypnotized, or will I be able to hypnotize people? And what if they go too deep, and all these sorts of things. But, what you people find is once they actually do it, it's like, it's actually quite fun and very relaxing and quite easy to do when you know how to do it.
Yeah, well, it's quite funny that you say that, because my husband Alex, when I got home on the first night, he was already in bed, and I was like, oh, I'm home, I've had my first day, and he was like, don't whisper anything about chickens to me. There's no chickens, we're just joking, it's just joking. And interestingly, actually, so from that first night, because he's quite skeptical around the hypnosis, but he also really likes getting tattoos. So I have just recently, I haven't told you about this actually before, I've just recently used hypnosis for pain relief for him prior to him going for a tattoo session.
Oh, fantastic. And how did that go?
He said it improved and he could last longer. But it took a long time to get him to relax. You know how they say you can't really do it to your partner, because I
Yeah,
was
it can
worried I was
be
going
harder working with your partner.
to put some suggestions in there that, clean the house, do the dishes, that type of thing.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it, with hypnosis, is that you can only take on the suggestions which are perfectly okay with your unconscious mind. So as much as, people always say, well, will I be able to make my husband do my housework? Well, if your husband's okay with that, perhaps.
Keep working on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And, it is a practice. The more times that you go into trance, the easier it's going to be. So perhaps if he's going to have some more work done next time, another round might get some even deeper results for him.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Ali. Well, that's fantastic. And what about for yourself? I know you were sort of saying that, with the hypnosis, and you lost all this weight, which was fantastic. What about on the NLP side of things? What can you tell us about some really important breakthrough that you've had using NLP?
Yeah, so hopefully this isn't too deep for the transformation discussion, but in a breakthrough with you that we've been doing recently around the timeline therapy. So a little bit of background, had a fairly traumatic childhood growing up, and I didn't realize this at the time, well, until recently, until we went through the timeline therapy process, is that I actually was holding on to a lot of anger and sadness and all of the other things that we learn to process as children. And since, I guess, have I broken through? Is that what the terminology is, Tony? You break through
Yeah.
whatever it happens to be, whatever it is. But yeah, definitely unpacking a lot of that stuff and getting rid of it through the timeline therapy process, and how you release a lot of those emotions and memories associated with all of that has been huge. I definitely noticed it probably within a week of going through my own NLP breakthrough. It was sort of like I'd been released from all of the expectations that I'd put on myself as a 4-year-old Ali that no longer served me and were no longer relevant. And a lot of that had to do with self-worth and feeling inadequate and insecure, even though I would always thought of myself as being quite a confident and secure person. So it was really interesting to unpack that. But now that I have, it's like they say, in that Gremlins movie, that they can't live in the light. Now that we've unpacked that, that's all the stuff I had buried deep. I have come out guns blazing. So it's been really interesting knowing what I know about NLP, knowing what I know about how the mind works. Because sometimes when you're a coach and you've done this kind of training, you think you know better. But you also just need the help of someone who also knows better and who is also NLP trained to help you get through some of that stuff. So yeah, it's been huge.
Well, and Ali, that's such a good point, because like I would definitely, as long as I've known you over the last year and a half or so, that you are a high achiever, a high performer, and and you have that history of being in leadership roles very young, being quite a talented performer, even in the arts and dance and those kinds of things. And I think often, people in that space where they have been achieving a lot, sometimes not always 100% aware that there could be some stuff still going on underneath. And, and I think every good coach has a coach. I mean, like I definitely have coaches for myself as well. And sometimes it's not until you push yourself a little bit further out of your normal comfort zone, so to speak, that you really get an idea that there are some other things that are sort of lurking underneath there that have perhaps been holding you back. And look, I know what I've been seeing, the work that you've been pumping out in the last week. It's been amazing. Like, you're just on fire.
Yeah. And I've definitely noticed it. It's like one of those things where I always knew that I was kind of just not quite reaching my full potential. And I think I've probably still got a little way to go, to be honest. We've still got some work to do there. But yeah, it's been really interesting, because I have always my entire life been classified as like a high performer, achieved lots of stuff, won a lot of stuff, did a lot of really cool things, and then kind of got to where I am now, and I was like, I thought I would be doing a lot more with my life. And it's only until I've been able to release a lot of that negative emotion that I'd been just, carrying around with me for no good reason, tucked away in little crevices, that I've started to unlock and start sort of performing at the level that, I guess, how we talk about identity, level that I identify with. So yeah, it's been pretty cool seeing it from the other side, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful story to share as far as transformations go, Ali, because if you look at who are the people that come and get coaching or help or work on their mindset or shift things. And I mean, a lot of what I do, I call it coaching, but a lot of it's really in the realms of therapy. And it's not just people who are massively struggling in life. It's people who want to get themselves to that next level and are prepared to go, right, I want to dig deep and and really elevate myself. And so I think that's it is a real testament to who you are as a person and your drive, because like you said, you've achieved so much, but it's that, yeah, do you know what, I have achieved a lot, but I can always take it a step further. And
Yeah.
you know, and this is how people do really get that level up, is by continuing to do the work on themselves, which is, yeah,
Well,
fantastic.
it's interesting. So I used to always say that I peaked in my 20s because I'm in my 30s now. And I used to be like, oh, I just did this, I just peaked too soon and I should have kind of stretched it out a little bit. And now I realized I just, reached a threshold and I needed a breakthrough and someone to hold some space. So thanks, Tony, for doing that. To hold some space and actually carve out some time so that I could, give myself the space that I needed to be able to work through that with someone that, was committed and could give me that time. It's been really good.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. All right. So, Ali, what I would like you to share now is, like, I know that you do some amazing work in the leadership space and leadership coaching. So, can you share with us maybe a story about, one of your own clients who's had some transformation, that you've been working with them in the leadership space?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the leaders that I work with are leaders by title. So they've been appointed. Usually what happens is they're performing really well in their role. And then the next logical step for them, monetarily wise, is for them to get promoted. And that promotion usually means that they're now responsible for people or a bunch of people that they may not have worked with beforehand. And being really good at what you do is very different to managing a team of people that can be good at what they do. So a lot of them do actually reach sort of a bit of a level where they have this imposter syndrome. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they know what they're doing. But they also don't want to tell anybody that they don't know what they're doing, in case, I'm not sure exactly what they think would happen, that they get demoted, or someone might find out that they're day one of getting this new job, that they don't know exactly what they're going to be doing. So I do find that I work with a lot of leaders that are suffering from the imposter syndrome. So where they feel like they're not worthy of their position.
So
And
they've
then
got that
all,
kind of identity mismatch, haven't we? We talk
yeah,
about identity, whereas how they see themselves in their identity doesn't match how they see this new role they should be.
yeah, and they're walking around in this really heightened state of possibly even a level of fear. If we have a look at it, that they're going to get found out. They're going to get caught and busted, and the game will be up, which of course isn't true. They're not getting promoted if they're not good enough for the role. It's just all of this stuff that happens in our head and all of our beliefs, if we get into the beliefs systems. But one of my clients that I've worked with, so they have the imposter syndrome and they're also looking for permission. So my leadership philosophy is around leadership mindset. So leadership to me is a mindset and an attitude, not so much a role or whatever it happens to say on your business card. And I think for leaders to be effective, they really need to be able to lead themselves, so actually take control of their lives and be able to steer a ship, so to speak. But a lot of leaders that have been promoted are waiting for someone to tell them what to do, which is okay, but it's not really great leadership material. If you've got a team that are reporting to you, or you've got a project that you're running, then you actually need to be the owner of that. And I find a lot of leaders have problems getting into that ownership space. And a lot of them are asking for permission. So one of my clients early on, when I started Made for More, she had been working for her organisation for about 10 years, I think. She was just about ready for long service leave. She hadn't been promoted, but she was looking to get promoted, but massive, massive imposter syndrome. Didn't think she was good enough, even though she'd been doing this job for 10 years and was amazing at it. So yes, did some work with her around her mindset and using some of the NLP techniques. And then she ended up applying for some jobs outside of her organisation and had a few interviews. And in the first interview, she won the job and it came with a promotion, so up to a senior leadership position, but it also came with a 40 grand pay rise, which was a pretty sweet deal. So she was,
Wow.
stoked.
Yeah,
And
that's huge. 40 grand.
yeah, it was pretty nice to receive that phone call actually from her. But yeah, a lot of it was very much all in her head and her not thinking that she was good enough, but clearly she was. She was 40 grand gooder
Yeah.
than she thought she was.
That's some work, Ali. I mean, oh wow. I mean, that is just a huge transformation and life changing, really, for that client.
Yeah. So she's actually been promoted again since then. So in 6 months, I think, within 6 months, she was promoted again to like another senior role. But yeah, she's pretty happy. She's pretty happy that we met and did some work on the imposter syndrome. And now she's like, I just don't know how I didn't see it. But I think it's one of those things when you've been in a role for such a long time doing the same thing, you just sometimes need someone else to be that reflective mirror for you.
Yeah, and it's so true. Is that whole thing of like you can't see outside of your own box. So I mean, we think
Yeah.
about everyone's in their own kind of box of what their problem is,
Yep.
and it's really hard to see outside of that on your own. And you know, I'm all for people coaching themselves and doing self help and all those kinds of things, but really that will only get you so far. There's always a point where having someone else's perspective, someone else's ability of asking really good questions
Yeah.
and you know reframing, that can make all the difference.
Yeah. And I think what you said there around the reframing, that's key. Like that's an amazing tool to use as a coach. You know, it's one of my favorite ones if we like pre-frame and reframe. But certainly that's had some amazing results. And you know that I call you the thought pattern interrupter. But I think when we work together and when we chat and you start using some of the clean language, the NLP clean language, the questions that you ask me just literally stop me in my tracks. And it doesn't happen you're the only person that's managed to stop me in my tracks so far in terms of like where my thoughts are going. But it is really interesting how, having a few techniques up your sleeve and having a few tools like NLP can just make such a difference to the way that our mind processes things because we get into a bit of a habit.
Yeah, and you know, Ali, that's spot on. And you know, this is why I'm such a great advocate of NLP, is really for the work people can do in understanding language and communication, because we all think, oh yeah, we speak English, we understand English. But when you learn NLP, you learn language and English in a whole different way, that you can hear what people are saying between their words. You can hear what they're leaving out, what they're generalizing, what they're distorting, and then you know the right questions to ask that will
Yeah.
uncover that. And you generally people are completely unaware of that, and so you know that's the power of language, because essentially you know the majority of our problems are all formed linguistically, how we're
Yeah.
using language in our own minds. So
Well,
that's really cool. So
that's so true.
yeah, so Ali, what I would love is if you could, talking about, you know, your favorite NLP sort of techniques, could you share with us what are your top 3 mindset tips?
My top 3 mindset tips, well, probably one of my favorite NLP tools or processes to use is the Cartesian coordinates, which is where it's like a grid. And it's sort of, I use it around a decision making model. So I do a little bit of change management as well. So leaders that will need to make big decisions or small decisions or impactful decisions, whichever way it happens to be, and they're having troubles making those decisions. So I use it around what would happen if you did do da 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 da. What would
Yeah,
happen if you didn't do blah blah blah. What wouldn't happen if you did, and what wouldn't happen if you didn't. And these 4 simple questions really give you a bit of a mind bend, but it also gives you some space to explore possibilities from a different perspective. And I find that that's really helpful for my clients as well.
yeah, that is gold, Ali. The Cartesian coordinates is absolutely, if you can get a grasp on that and you learn it and you understand it, you can think around any problem, you can think around other people's problems. It is a game changer. Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
one. What else have you got?
Also, the reframing, I think that's amazing. I still have a lot of work to do on myself around reframing, and I love that when you pick me up on it as well. But it's really easy. And, this is the beauty of having, friends that are coaches, but coaches around you is even though I know what I know, I still do it automatically until I start really starting to notice my own language. So, yes, the reframing, which is basically if you've got a thought that's potentially a negative thought, how can you reframe it and spin it around to be a more positive thought? And I think this time where we're in at the moment, probably even a couple of weeks ago, when there was chaos and crisis and pivot and unprecedented times and, the media was going crazy, And you could tell the people that were falling into the propaganda mill versus the ones that were like, okay, well, where's the opportunity here? What can we do to remain resilient? What can we do to come out of this the other side? And this is like the clients that I work with versus the ones that, really did fall into, I don't want to say a heap because that's not kind, but did struggle to adapt and move and see an opportunity. And I think reframing's a huge part of that, being able to change the way you look at something.
Even like you said, those really simple reframes, like, what else could this mean? What would this mean in a different context? And and as the further you go into NLP, the more types of reframes that you learn that there are, and it is a really powerful tool. So top marks for that one. And what's your number 3?
My number 3 one is an NLP presupposition, which is the map is not the terrain. And I love this. I've somehow fallen into a space where I talk a lot about like nautical things, which is weird because I don't have a nautical background in any way, but I just like ships and boats and all of that. So I love that the map is not the terrain. And I think when you can start unpacking that, just because you think you know the way isn't always the way. And it's really interesting. Back in 2010, I trekked the Himalayas as part of like a charity. It was super fun. Awesome. It was like 14 days trekking the Himalayas, no toilets or anything like that. Like, it was very sleep on the side of a mountain. It was amazing. But what was really interesting is the leader of our trekking group, he'd been a couple of years before and he had trekked the Himalayas as well with the same group that we went with. And it was like, it's kind of rocky, the terrain's a bit rocky and it's going to be quite hot and it's a bit sandy. And then when we landed at base camp, we were actually trekking a different part of the Himalayas, and we got there and it was like subtropical and it was like muddy and boggy, and there was sleet one day, and then we kind of went like down into a valley and it was, it was so humid and like soaking wet with sweat, and then you get up higher again and you're covered in sleet and snow. And it was really interesting because, they're all the Himalayas, it's all hills and mountains and everything, but the map was definitely not the terrain. The terrain was very different to what we were expecting from just having a look at, the satellite view of where we were. So yes, I think that's a good one to keep in your back pocket for understanding people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, you can look at that as far as, how someone describes something isn't necessarily how it is. And, often we find that with our clients, don't we? It's like, oh, it's been terrible. This horrible situation's happened. And, my boss is this and that. And, it's really just, I don't know how to deal with it anymore. And then when you unpack it, you go, oh, okay, perhaps it's not really as dramatic as everything as it's been described to be. So, I think definitely, how something is described isn't how it is.
Yeah, and I love that saying where people go, oh, it's ruined my whole day, or I've had a really bad day. And you're like, have you had a really bad day, or have you just had a bad 5 minutes? That's now turned into a day.
For the rest of the day.
Like it's 9 a.m. I don't know, like it's probably too early to give up on the whole day. So just cool your jets.
All right, I love that, Ali. So what do we have? The Cartesian coordinates, reframing, and the map is not the terrain. Brilliant 3 tips. Thank you very much for sharing those with us. And Ali, it's come to that time that, I really love that you've come on here and you've shared some absolute gold. And, there's real stories of transformation here. So, that's so great that you share them, because I know that these stories do help, for the people who are watching. So if you're watching and you can resonate with some of these stories and you feel like, perhaps this has inspired you to get some transformation in your own life, whether it's in stepping up in leadership or in your health or your mindset, it is possible. And that's what we really want for you, is to know that this is possible. And there are people out there doing this work, getting transformations, and that can help you too. So keeping that in mind, Ali, can you perhaps tell us a bit about where people can find you? And do you have any programs or events coming up?
Oh, I sure do. So I hang out a lot on LinkedIn, so you can find me there, Ali Nitschke, LinkedIn, whatever, whatever way you find it.
Yeah.
And in terms of courses that I have coming up, I've actually am about to launch my new program, which is Lighthouse Leaders. So again, with the nautical theme. But I talk to a lot of leaders, and I think one of the most important things that leaders can be is a lighthouse. So being that calm amongst the chaos, which there is quite a bit at the moment, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit in the months to come. But yes, so launching my 6-week intensive Lighthouse Leadership program, that'll be coming out on LinkedIn next week. And then, as you mentioned, I've also run a Courageous Conversations workshop. So my next one of those is the 18th of June, which will be held here in Adelaide.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll get some links that we can pop underneath the video for people to come and check you out as well, Ali. So
yeah, sure. Thank you.
I highly recommend, if you're in that leadership space and you're looking for some help to really get up to that next level, have some courageous conversations, be the lighthouse leader. Ali Nitschke, Made for More, is your lady who's going to be able to help you out there. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about hypnosis or NLP and coming along to learn those modalities, you can get in contact with me. There is a hypnosis training happening at the end of May, and which I'll have a webinar on next Friday, which you can check out at Tony Everard Coaching on Facebook events. So that's it for this episode.
Is it next Friday or is it this Friday?
Thank you so much for being my guest. It has been an absolute pleasure. And I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Thanks so much for having me. And it was my pleasure.
Great.